Hey there, my name is Dave Ward, and this is my MYX Fitness indoor spin bike. Super excited about this addition to the Beachbody catalog. In mid-2021, Beachbody bought MYX Fitness, and in September of 2021, the company that I have partnered with for 15 years brought indoor cycling into the Beachbody ecosystem, providing this tablet which has every workout ever loaded onto Beachbody On Demand, and also a bunch of live classes and other cool stuff that comes along with it. It has been a super fun experience. And because I've been a cyclist for most of my life, I started racing BMX bikes when I was probably 8. And after that, I got into road cycling and mountain biking, and then got into triathlon, and then more mountain biking and more road cycling. And then I even spent a couple seasons riding around on a velodrome, which is kind of like a little NASCAR track. It's a banked oval, and the bikes have one gear and no brakes. So it's pretty exciting. It's kind of like NASCAR, actually. But because I have that experience, when my friends who I've known for years started buying their MYX bikes, they had a lot of questions about what are the different things we can do to make this more comfortable. This hurts, that hurts, this doesn't work. Why should I do it this way? And so in order to just kind of put together in one nice, clean little spot, sort of 5 things you can do to just make this a way better experience, more comfortable, more enjoyable overall, so that you're going to want to get on this bike almost every day. Okay, so the first one is managing sweat. Understand that in particular with spin bike, you're going to sweat a ton, and you need to be ready for that. So the first thing is, let's start with you. I like to wear a headband when I ride. This one is my favorite brand of headband. It's made by a company called Halo, H-A-L-O, like the video game. And what I like about them is what they did was they sewed in this little rubber gasket sort of thing. And what that does is it creates this really nice little seal right across the top of your, or the bottom of your forehead rather, and just keeps the sweat from flooding your eye zone. So that's really nice. It just kind of channels sweat right around, which is really cool. These are great. I love these. That is a go-to thing for me. The second is just a towel. Now, you could just use a regular towel and just kind of drape it over the bars like that, which is fine. That's what I did for a while. It's not the best, you know, and I like to have a towel, like a loose towel, to just kind of be able to mop myself up with. This is called a spin towel. And the spin towel, as you can see, is just perfectly set up to just slip right over the bars. And boom, there you go. If you're riding every day, you might want to pick up 1 or 2 of those, or I mean 1 or 2 more of those, so you don't have to wash them every day. That thing has been awesome. Next thing is the mat underneath the bike. I'm pretty sure that's in frame, but I've got a rubber mat underneath the bike that helps with stability because I'm on carpet. This was my son's room before he went to college. I converted it over, but it also keeps the carpet from getting funky because you can just kind of Swiffer this thing off or wipe it off with a towel or whatever, and it doesn't get all grimy and grungy, but the carpet will soak up stuff. Even if you're on tile, it's going to protect your tile, right? Keep the bike from moving around. These things are super stable, but you know, there's some potential to maybe scratch up some tile or wood floors or something like that. So for sweat purposes and protecting your floor, get a mat underneath your bike. So that's the first one, managing sweat, understanding that there's going to be a lot of it. Second one is an insulated water bottle, okay? So you can just use a regular water bottle. I mean, you don't really need to, although I drink a lot of water when I do this because workouts are hard. This is a Camelback Podium. Let's see if that picks up. Should pick it up. These are the water bottles I've been using for years, and the reason is because they have a very thin layer of insulation, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it does keep stuff cold longer. It just makes stuff more enjoyable. So an insulated water bottle, at minimum, you're going to want a water bottle. That's why that little thing is right there. Let's move on to number 3. What you can do to make your indoor cycling experience much more enjoyable is get a pair of shoes that are designed for indoor cycling. These are actually road bike shoes, but they have on the bottom, you'll see an SPD cleat. If you're using the MYX bike, the SPD cleat is the right one to get. The way the pedals are on almost every spin bike, but specifically on the MYX bike, because that's the one I've got, is on one side they've got like a little cage that goes over the top of your foot, and on the bottom side they've got a pedal that you can clip right into and be clipped into the pedal. And if you're doing these workouts, pretty much wherever you're doing the workouts, certainly on MYX. If you watch the instructors, they're not using the cages, they're clipped in. There's a reason for that. It's because it's better. So the difference between a cycling shoe and just a regular cross trainer, these are super stiff. Now again, these are road bike shoes. They do make shoes that are kind of a hybrid. But you can see how like this is just a regular cross trainer. This is what I would wear if I was just going to do a floor workout. They're super flexible. That's not providing you with the kind of stability that you want if you're really going to stand on the pedals and get the most out of it. I have another video where I go into depth about this, about the quality of the stroke and what happens. But the biggest thing I see happening with the people who are on the podcast, which is like everybody else who's doing the workout, you can see a whole bunch of other people, is they're pointing their toes down. And they're doing that because there's a cage over the top of their foot. And they're trying to drive their foot down into that cage. And so their pedal stroke looks kind of like this. Except that's not really how you want a pedal stroke to look. You want your pedal stroke to look like that, a little more flat. And when you're clipped in, the other thing you can do is when at the bottom of the pedal stroke, so your foot sort of goes down like this, you can pull up. And so when you're pulling up, you're using your hamstrings, you're using your glutes, taking a little bit of pressure off hip flexors, things like that. It's a much more complete and efficient stroke that's also safer, because if you have those shoes and you're in the little cage and you try to pull up, you might just pull yourself straight out of that pedal, which is dangerous because of the way this thing is structured. The flywheel is going to keep turning. Now you're like bouncing around on one leg like the girl who's doing gymnastics on her bike. If you haven't seen that video, it's pretty hilarious. The good news is, and you'll see this is what the trainers are wearing in the podcast or wherever you're watching online cycling content, they're wearing shoes that have cleats. They look like these shoes though. So they make real specific shoes. I just use these because I had them and they're really high quality. And I like the stiff nature of these. But they make like a hybrid of these two shoes. They look like these. They've got a much stiffer sole, and they've got an SPD cleat on the bottom. That, you know, they're really good if you're going to do like hybrid workouts where you're going to go from, you know, the floor, lifting some weights, and then to the bike. You don't have to change shoes. When I do that, since these are no good for that, obviously, I just do that portion barefoot and then just slip these on. It takes a minute. Again, I like the super rigid feel of these, but for about $100, these were like $300. They're higher end thing. Don't need to do that. For about $100, you can pick up a decent pair of shoes that have the cleat in them, be much more efficient. Again, I have a long video on this where I go into detail about the pedal stroke and why it's so much better and safer and more efficient to have a shoe that has a cleat. So that's number 3. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is really a comfort thing, okay? I find this MYX bike saddle to be super cushy, marshmallow soft. But I'm used to rock hard racing road bike saddles. And this one for me is super, super comfortable. However, a lot of my friends who, you know, they're new to cycling, not used to that feel, have found some discomfort with it. So when I am on my rock hard road bike saddle, I use these. These are bib shorts. I would suggest you get the bib ones. They also make them that get cut off at the waist, but they kind of slide down. The bibs keep them up around your waist where they're supposed to be. And they just have a little built-in padding that's just built into them, okay? Just provides you with that little bit of relief. I think that's really an optional thing, but again, for, you know, my friends who find this thing to be new and not super comfortable, a pair of bib shorts or just padded cycling shorts goes a long, long way and makes you way more comfortable. Let's move on to number 5. Okay, number 5 kind of builds on number 4 with comfort and the saddle. If you try bib shorts and that does not work for you and you're still super uncomfortable, don't be afraid to replace this saddle, okay? It's a pretty easy process, just a bolt here on the side. You loosen that up and you'll be able to get a new saddle. I would just take it down to a bike shop, one, you know, that has a wide variety of saddles. Show it to them, say, look, this thing is just not comfortable. They'll get you fit with the right one. This is not a one-size-all thing. I don't know how many different saddles I've had on the various different bikes I've had over the years, but it's a lot. And that's because they just need to be fit properly. So that's just kind of building on it. But in a broader sense, this is really about the bike setup overall. One thing to keep in mind with cycling is that when you're sitting down, you're doing the same exact motion over and over and over again. Now you can vary that by standing up, and then we go up and down a lot in the workouts, but for the most part, you're just doing the same motion. That's a recipe for repetitive stress injuries if your bike is not set up properly, okay? So there's a video, if you're using a MYX bike, there's a video on bike setup. I really suggest you go through and do that. And then don't be afraid to tweak it, okay? If you have any discomfort, you're probably gonna see it in your knees, your hips, or your lower back. The lower back might be because your bars are too far away from you and you're just kind of bending over too much. This is not a triathlon. You don't need to be in a time trial position. You want to be comfortable. Actually just raised my bars a little bit because I kind of felt like maybe this isn't right. And so after I'm done with this video, I'll do a ride and see if that's where I want them. And if not, I'll just move them, okay? Simple process. But look for those things of knees, hips, and lower back. The lower back is probably not your back. It's because your bars are too far forward. It's probably your hips. Your hips are in the wrong position. One of the things I see a lot of people, their seat's way too far forward, okay? And that doesn't allow their knees to articulate properly. Makes it easier if you're pointing your toes because you don't have cycling shoes on, but it's not a proper position. It's gonna lead to some repetitive stress injuries. Really follow the setup instructions. The other thing I'd tell you is that if you're sharing this bike with somebody and that person does not have the same position you do, which is pretty likely that they're not gonna have the same position, take a marker and just make it with a Sharpie, just put your initials next to wherever that ideal setup is so that you can adjust the bike back. If you're 6'2" and your wife is 5'2" and you're both using the bike, when you get back to it, if she's been using it, it's gonna be in the wrong position. Don't ride that way. Take a minute, adjust the setup. Once you have it dialed and you have it super comfortable, just grab a Sharpie, put your initials next to it or make a line or in a whatever, however you do it. Just note where the setup is. Setup is so, so, so important on a bike. Avoid the repetitive stress injuries. Spin bike, indoor cycling should be fun and pain-free. It should be an almost zero impact workout that you can do with a lot of longevity. I just turned 50. I'm in no hurry to stop riding my bike, believe me, and it's because it's a very low stress activity. At least it should be if your bike's set up correctly, but if your bike's not set up correctly, it's not going to work. So those are really the 5 things that I wanted to talk about: managing sweat, getting an insulated water bottle. The shoes, I think, are probably the most important one, next to maybe setup. And then comfort things, some bib shorts, maybe a different saddle, some stuff you can think about. Again, this should be a super comfortable, fun activity. Just recognize you're going to sweat a ton, and if you get a proper pair of cycling shoes or just shoes that are made for indoor cycling, it's just going to make your experience a ton better. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Feel free to leave a comment below, especially if you have a brand of indoor cycling shoes that you found that you really dig. Again, I'm using just an old pair of road shoes because I have them and I like the way they feel, but I'm sort of thinking about getting a pair just because I do like to do these kind of hybrid workouts where maybe I come in here, stretch for 10 minutes, lift for 20 minutes, and then jump on and do a half-an-hour bike ride. It's not a huge thing to just put my shoes on, but if I can find something that's better, I'm into getting better, having more fun, being more comfortable. Hopefully you are too. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Keep an eye out. We're going to be doing other videos on things like heart rate training. It may seem like the workouts are just kind of random and we're just trying to thrash ourselves for 30 minutes. It's not really what's going on. There is a real purpose behind heart rate training. It's something that I've had a lot of experience with and I'm excited to share with you. So keep an eye here on YouTube channel if that's where you're watching. They'll be on the same playlist. Or jump over to the fitclubnetwork.com, which is our main website where we house all this content and have recipes and have all kinds of information about how to sleep better and how to just be happier and live a better life and enjoy your wellness more. So hopefully that's helpful. Shoot me a comment. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Have a great day.